Shedeur Sanders was throwing to ball boys last year. This year, he's already QB1, and Dillon Gabriel can't do anything about it.
Rolling. Dillon Gabriel has not been to the Browns facility at all. No, out of sight, out of mind. No one even knows what he looked like no more. Dillon Gabriel might have braids right now. He might have dreads. We don't know. Nobody has seen Dillon Gabriel. He has not shown up to the facility at all. Now, is it mandatory for him to be there? No, but with the new head coach, you're trying to be a quarterback on the team, you might want to start showing face and getting near and around the facility. Shedeur Sanders has been there nonstop, putting in the work. People
Cleveland
are trying
Browns,
to down.
I think, are in a position where I agree with your assessment that this is not the year. You're not going to go make a Super Bowl run right now. Ideally, you'd like much better quarterback play, and so you can maximize what Myles Garrett's bringing to the table on defense. But I think we got to ride this out. We used 2 picks last year, even though they weren't high picks on quarterbacks. So now we just got to kind of play with what we have here. Unless somebody falls to us in a later round, take another dart throw in the 3rd or later. If that presents itself, fine. But I don't know that it makes much sense to put 3 quarterbacks in their first 2 years in the same quarterback room. But darts at a dartboard, I suppose. But I kind of think you give Shedeur, and I am actually leaving Deshaun out of the conversation. I'm going Shedeur and Dillon in some combination of that. Next year, you start with Shedeur. If that doesn't work out, maybe you go back to Dillon. Whatever, you get through the season, and now you either get an answer that's good about one of them. One of them, starts to show signs that like Tyler Shuck did in New Orleans, not part of the plan necessarily, but they were like, oh, hey, maybe we change our plan because maybe we don't have to make quarterback a priority at the moment because he's good enough. Put people around him. I think that you could end up in that situation if you're Cleveland, ideally, if Shedeur or Dillon or somebody emerges this season. And then if not, then you draft a quarterback next year in a year where there are better options.
Something is going down in Cleveland, and it's bigger than most people are letting on. A quarterback, a guy who was supposed to be the future of this franchise, hasn't shown his face at the facility, not once. The new head coach hasn't even met him yet. And while one man is grinding in silence, putting in work every single day, the other? Gone. Disappeared, like he already knows his time in Cleveland is over. This isn't just a quarterback competition anymore. This is a story about pride, betrayal, and a man who feels like the game was rigged against him before it even started. Stay with me, because what's happening in Cleveland right now, nobody's telling the full story.
No, I'm basing it off what I saw with my own 4 eyes in training camp and the offseason program. And that is they were treating this guy like he was a first-round pick by giving him these first-team reps and preparing him to be a starter this year. And I just couldn't take it seriously.
Yeah, I couldn't either. That was part of the problem. And the insistence that he was being so much better than Shedeur Sanders, as you're watching, as I'm watching, we're at training camp and watching none of this go well, was one of the more maddening exercises of my life.
I mean, there were drills where he was struggling to keep.
Let's rewind. When the Cleveland Browns drafted Dillon Gabriel, people had questions. He wasn't a first-round flashy name. He was a third-round pick. Scrappy, determined, a guy who balled out in college and had something to prove at the next level. And for a moment, it looked like he might actually get that shot. Last season, the Browns handed him first-team reps. They treated him like a starter, like a guy who was going to lead this franchise. And Dillon Gabriel ran with it. He took the job. He became QB1 in Cleveland. But here's where things start to crack. Because at the same time, sitting way down on that depth chart, buried at 4th string, was a name that should sound very familiar. Shedeur Sanders, the son of Deion Sanders, a kid who had dominated in college, a kid who, according to reports, wasn't even being given the courtesy of throwing to wide receivers during training camp drills. He was throwing to ball boys, to coaches, just trying to survive, while Gabriel got all the glory. And the football world watched and waited. Then came the benching. Dillon Gabriel lost his starting job last season. It didn't come quietly. It didn't come gently. It came like a gut punch, the kind that makes you question everything you've worked for. And from that moment forward, something shifted inside Dillon Gabriel. Something broke, because he genuinely believed that he deserved to get that job back. And when the offseason came, when the Browns brought in new head coach Todd Monken and started fresh, Gabriel had a choice: show up, compete, fight for what he believed was rightfully his. He didn't show up. Let that sink in for a second. A man competing for a starting quarterback job in the NFL has not been to the facility, not once. The new head coach, the man who has the power to hand him that job back, has never even laid eyes on him, never shaken his hand, never had a single conversation. Dillon Gabriel is nowhere to be found.
Dillon not being here, but I do think that there was a bit of contrast between, Monken not meeting Dillon Gabriel yet and Shedeur spending a bunch of time this offseason in Cleveland, getting to know Todd, buying him a horse's head for his birthday.
I do buy into that. And by the way, I'll put it on the front of it. I think like the 5 minutes we spend talking about Dillon Gabriel is the most I hope to spend talking about Dillon Gabriel in the next 3 months. Like I hope he's so far removed from this quarterback competition that
Now, while Gabriel is out of sight, you know who is in that building? Shedeur Sanders. Every single day, non-stop, grinding, getting to know the coaching staff, building relationships, learning the culture. Reports even surfaced that he bought Todd Monken a gift, a horse's head, for his birthday. Now, whether that's quirky or brilliant, one thing is clear: Shedeur Sanders is doing everything right. He's showing up, literally and figuratively, in a way that cannot be ignored. And the contrast? It's painful to watch. Sports reporter Mary Kay Cabot, one of the most respected voices covering the Cleveland Browns, made it crystal clear. She noted the striking difference between the two quarterbacks. One is all in, one is somewhere in Hawaii, working out with private trainers, preparing for a future that apparently doesn't include Cleveland. That's not a rumor, that's the reality. And here's where it gets really heavy. People around the Browns organization are reportedly saying Dillon Gabriel may be on the move very soon. Trade whispers are starting to get louder, not quiet background noise, loud, undeniable chatter. Gabriel wants out. In Cleveland might just be fine with that. The Browns are now planning to draft a developmental quarterback later in the draft, 5th, 6th, maybe 7th round. And those practice reps, those valuable quarterback reps that used to belong to Dillon Gabriel, they're going to that new developmental guy, not Gabriel. Think about what that means. You were a quarterback on a roster. Your reps are being handed to someone who hasn't even been drafted yet. That's not a competition anymore. That's a message.
the 5 minutes we spend talking about Dillon Gabriel is the most I hope to spend talking about Dillon Gabriel in the next 3 months. Like I hope he's so far removed from this quarterback competition that he's not being an afterthought is what I want Dillon Gabriel to be, which is what he's been essentially since he got benched or since he lost his job last year.
I'm hoping he ends up in Atlanta or somewhere else.
That's the ideal scenario. He's just off the team and we can just kind of forget about him. Why is it that there's an insistence that we treat Dillon Gabriel the same way we're treating Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson?
Now, the media in Cleveland has basically moved on already. One analyst said, and these words hit different, that he hoped the 5 minutes spent talking about Dillon Gabriel would be the most time spent on him in the next 3 months, that he wanted Gabriel to not even be an afterthought, that the dream scenario was Gabriel ending up in Atlanta or somewhere far away from Cleveland, so everyone could just forget about him. That's cold. That's brutal. But that's the honest truth coming from people inside the market who watched him struggle in training camp last year. Reporters who watched him throw incomplete passes against air, not even against a defense, while being treated like a first-round franchise quarterback. One analyst said it best: when you're sitting there in training camp, hoping maybe he's a gamer, hoping that maybe what you're seeing in practice isn't real and the lights will bring something else out of him, you've already lost the argument. You're making excuses for a guy before the season even starts. And deep down, Dillon Gabriel probably knows all of this. But here's the part that actually makes you feel something. Nobody is saying Dillon Gabriel is a bad person. Everybody who has talked about this situation has been clear. He's a good kid. He's a hard worker. He played his heart out in college. He just got caught in a situation that was bigger than him. A franchise in chaos, a coaching staff that overpromised, a fan base that needed a savior and tried to make him one before he was ready. And when it all fell apart, he didn't know how to respond. So he retreated. He went back to what he knew, his trainers, his people, his comfort zone, trying to prepare for whatever comes next somewhere other than Cleveland. Maybe that's self-preservation. Maybe that's smart. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the move of a man who already knows the chapter is over and doesn't want to sit in a building that's already moved on without him. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders keeps showing up every single day. Even though the rules don't allow full football activities yet, even though he can't get a playbook, even though coaches can't run plays with him or draw up schemes, he shows up to the weight room, he shows up to the facility, he says hello, he builds trust, he demonstrates commitment in every way the rules allow. After being buried 4th on the depth chart last year, after throwing the ball boys because the team ran out of receivers, after being disrespected in every quiet, behind closed doors way possible, Shedeur Sanders is still showing up. And now, he's QB1 in everything but name. The Cleveland Browns story this offseason was supposed to be about rebuilding, about hope, about starting fresh, and it is, just not in the way Dillon Gabriel imagined. His reps are being given away, his presence is being forgotten, his future in Cleveland is fading with every day he doesn't walk through those facility doors. And somewhere across the country, working out in private, away from the cameras and the noise, Dillon Gabriel is making peace with an ending nobody wanted for him. Some stories don't end the way you planned. Some battles are lost before the first snap, and sometimes the hardest thing a man can do is admit that the fight is over. Dillon Gabriel wanted Cleveland. Cleveland has moved on to Shedeur Sanders. That's football. That's life. And that right there is the story of how a quarterback forced his way out of a city that had already let him go. If this story hit different, if you felt something watching this, hit that subscribe button right now. Because we tell the stories nobody else is telling, the way nobody else tells them. Hit subscribe, drop a comment below. Do you think Dillon Gabriel deserved better? Or is this all on him? Let's talk about it.